Ladies and gentlemen, today is May 26th, 2015. And this is the KNKL Show, episode 232, where we learn to be better artists. I am your host, Kienan Lafferty, and today is episode 232, where we are going to be learning about choosing the right colors. And it is a little bit laggy, I do understand that. Bit of a laggy day here on Twitch, but if you're on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, then you're in luck because I local record, and you won't have to deal with that. But in the meantime, Twitch people, thank you very much for putting up with it. Today, what we're going to be doing is, yes, like I said, choosing the right colors. And we're going to be further exploring or further delving into Vi here as we have rendered her in an isometric pose from our past dailies. So if you're interested in learning how I got to this point, just go ahead and check out my previous shows on YouTube. You can have yourself a good time. But before we get into the actual tutorial, we got to take a stroll down a very special place, and that is the lovely lane. Where is it? There we go. The lovely lane, because you guys have been freaking awesome, and you're submitting all of your beautiful artworks, and sexy ladies. Like I said, I love having all these sexy ladies on the timeline because it makes people want to go and check it out. And you too can post your artwork and get featured on the show if you just type in that tiny URL at the bottom. Go check them out on the Facebook, like the page, and come get some cookies and all that good stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. Choosing the right colors. I was trying to figure out for the longest time what I was actually going to call today's show. Like, I was going to call it like color picking or something like that, but it was just sounded really kind of boring. So today is also, I was going to call it ambient occlusion, but we've already done an ambient occlusion episode. So today I figured something that would sound good was picking the right colors. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. Let's take away the background. Whoops. Let's take away the background and actually fix the background. There we go. Okay, so we've got a white background, and let's go ahead and take away all the mask. So this is basically where we left off last week. We had finished our lines. We had cleaned up our outlines because we know that is what professionals do. That is the difference between professional and amateur artwork, is just how clean your edges are. And then we went ahead and added our character mask. Whoops, that basically just looked like this. It was pink before, but now I've turned it blue. And so what we're going to be doing today is talking about color picking, okay? So originally I was trying to figure out exactly how I was going to place my composition, figure out how I was going to like lay Vi in here. That way it could be like a cool desktop or like a print in the future. And I just couldn't quite figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Like I was like thinking, oh, maybe we should just like size it up. Maybe we should just like make it really big. But it still looked kind of like weird. Maybe it should be like off to the side. No, you could like rotate it. Nothing was really floating my boat. So I decided instead what I was going to do was create a composition more so with using the background. Using the background to create a composition. And I really wanted to do something incorporating ambient light. You might be asking, what is ambient light, Keenan? Well, I'm about to show you. Okay, so here's what I've gone ahead and done. Okay, I've laid in this background, and it basically consists of, if I were to replicate this background over again, here's exactly how I did it. Okay, so we've got this dark blue. Okay, dark blue. There's the color right there. So what I actually did was I filled in the entire thing. And this is another layer set to lighten, but we'll get to that in a second. So I really wanted to have like a dynamic lit scene, right? So I figured, okay, let's do like a warm light kind of coming from behind her. Maybe it could be like some, I don't know, like some city lights or like headlights of like a car behind her. Like I figured maybe she's like in an alley, like apprehending a criminal, and like the cop car lights from behind are like shining on her. Okay, so basically what I did is I took my soft brush and I just laid it in like this. Okay, so there's our light source coming in. Whoa, awesome. And then I just softened it, right, by just kind of grabbing this, making sure there's a little bit of fall off on that light. Okay, and then I took the cast shadow from her legs and just did that. Whoa, cool. But then I did something also very interesting. And I wanted to have a very subtle ambient light coming from the other side. And I wanted this one to be a little bit more warm. Maybe it could be like a fire in the distance. I don't know. I just wanted it to be lighter in nature, okay? So a really cool way that you can go about doing this is you want to create a new layer, okay? Because see, like this is all just one layer. So you create a new layer and set it to lighten. Set it to lighten, and then watch what happens when you choose a color, such as this is what I want my reflected light to be, or like my other ambient light to be. When you set it to lighten, watch what happens. It actually will only color areas where it possibly can lighten the shadow. See how I'm pressing down here, but it's not coloring the light? So you can actually create a cool effect this way. Create a really cool effect this way. And basically, it just creates, basically makes something that looks like a reflected light, or like your shadows are being affected by this. But you just let the computer do the work for you, and it decides for itself when to not bleed into the actual light. So it only affects the shadows. So I did something kind of like that, basically. Kind of simplified it very heavily, but what the heck happened? Why did that change to that? Okay, you know what? I'm going to shorten down this image size. We're going to drop it down a little bit, because I'm going to be working a lot with soft brushes today, and that usually makes my computer lag like crazy. So taking it down a notch, taking it down a notch. No biggie, no biggie, right? We're still at 200. All right, so that's basically what I did. That's how I arrived here, or here. Actually, you can see the reflected light that I did was actually a lot more desaturated. I used like an orange light, but really I was actually using like this kind of, it does have some warmth to it, you can see. We're in this red area, and we put just a tad bit of that in there. Tad bit of that in there. Set that to lighten, and boom, there you go. All right, so let's talk about ambient stuff. Let's talk about ambient stuff, because so often I used to look at other people's paintings, and I was like, how do they know which colors to pick? How do they know which colors to pick? And it looks like people are having issues with the freaking stream. I don't even know what's going on today. I'm dropping like a third of the frames. Makes me so sad. Makes me so sad. But hey, we're going to carry on anyway. Just know that if you guys are watching this, you can check it out on YouTube later. But anyway, picking the right colors. Picking the right colors. So we've got the skin, right? Skin's coming up here. Probably one of the most important things that you can do is to pick the right color for the skin. So you might say, okay, well, we're going to start painting Vi. So let's start making our actual masks. Right? So you're going to grab this there, and you're going to grab that there. Okay, so you got your ink brush selected on both your pen and eraser, or rather your paintbrush and eraser. And you might be tempted to say, yeah, okay, I know what color skin is. All right, Vi's skin is like this color, right? All right, well, let's start painting. All right, cool. Well, it doesn't really look like she belongs in this setting. Like, but we'll worry about it later. Like, let's just figure it out when we do the shadows, right? Okay, well, I know that shadows are supposed to be like kind of dark and like purple. That's what they taught me in art school, right? Or in art class. Yeah, let's just make them like dark purple, right? And let's use like a soft brush, and then let's like start shading stuff. Okay. Yeah, now she looks like a weird giraffe thing. She's just lacking spots, right? She's lacking spots to be a giraffe. And this is kind of where I ran into my problem. I was like, how do I know what colors I'm supposed to pick? How do I know the proper colors? Because it's not as simple as like, okay, well, let's pick the local color, which is a fancy way of saying the real color, dropping that in, and then adding shadow to it. This is the way I used to do a lot of my old pieces, where I would add the shadows. But what I've learned to do more recently, and actually works a lot better, is to start with the shadows and then paint the light. Start with the shadows, paint the light. So we have something more like this, which if we pull up our color picker, you can see that the color is actually right here. It's actually it's like a purple. It's going into the purples, and then it's dropped down and it's desaturated. It's not heavily saturated, right smack dab in the middle. And that basically is what your skin color is. That is what your skin color is because of the lack of light on it. I'm thinking about the ambient light that is present in the scene. And for this scene, I decided it was going to be a very soft blue. Okay? So let me go into, like, this is a very complex technique that I'm explaining to you guys today, but I'm really hoping that I can explain this properly and that you guys can see a little bit, at least part of the show live, and then it'll be on YouTube later. So anyway, so here's my thought process when I'm picking colors, okay? So I say, okay, the local color of Vi's skin is kind of like this light tan kind of peach color, right? But then what we're going to be doing is we're introducing, it's going to be dark, right? It's going to be darkened because there's not as much light hitting, you know, just from the ambience. But then it's also going to be blue. And if you look right here, it's down in the reds, right? So if we add blue to red, we're naturally going to start moving into the purples. And this is where this is basically my thought process every time. What color is the ambient light, and how is that going to affect our main color? What color are the shadows? And that's how we basically wound up right here. We wound up with this color. So, and I'll do that again with a couple more of the materials just so you can see what we're talking about. Just so you can get the idea. Get the idea, okay? So basically we're right there. Same exact color. So let's move on to the hair. Move on to the hair. Now all of us know that Vi's hair is very, very light pink. So it's kind of like this, right? But also because it's a dim light, because it's darkened, we're going to go down, right? We're going to bring it down a notch. And then there's blue mixing in with it, so we're going to go more purple. And then, because I usually just like to desaturate my shadows, because you want to think about it. Like, as there's less light, there's less color to be picked up too. So you're going to move to this side. You're going to move this way, towards the gray area, towards the 50 Shades of Gray. And there you have your hair color. Actually, that's still too bright. Still too bright. It needs to be darkened a little bit. And basically what I like to do to make sure that my values are looking properly is just, it's all by comparison. It's comparison by saying, okay, well, I know that Vi's hair is a darker value than her skin. So I know by, like, if I had picked this color and thought that that was it, if I paint that in, obviously that's not the proper color. We're not quite there yet because this value right here is brighter than this value, okay? So that's number 2. Remember, you want to compare all of your colors and your values to one another. So that's how we ended up with this. And actually, oh, the other cool thing about this, and this is kind of cheating, but you know, whatever, I don't really care, is if you hit Control U, you can then fine tune your colors. You can fine tune your colors. Say, you know what, maybe I want it to be a little bit more purple. Let's see, is that working? And I want it to be more purple, so you can drag it more this way. Maybe I want it to be darker. You can drag it that way. And you can apply the hue, saturation, all that stuff. You can fine-tune basically your ambient colors or your starting colors to be exactly what you want. Okay? So same thing with the gold. Check this out. We're not painting gold like this. We're not painting gold like that. We're painting gold like this. Can you tell what I did there? Take a look. So we started here, adding blue to yellow. What does that do? Well, is that going to turn it like green? Am I going to get like a greenish gold? Well, I tend to think of gold more, it depends on the type of metal, but I like to think more of the gold as more like red. Because sometimes you might want to consider, it's like, well, which way do I go? Do I go like this way for blue, or do I go that way? Oftentimes I usually like to lean toward the purple area, like the purple shadows, purple colors. Adding purple to it, for the most part. 9 times out of 10, I feel that's what I'm doing. So, so we got gold, bring it down and to the left. And there you have basically the same color. A little darker, but there you go. All right, so let's add the rest of these in. Now that you know my technique for choosing colors, let's go ahead and move on to step 2. And this one's gonna be really fun because we got this cool backlighting happening, this awesome like bright white light that's coming from behind Vi. Now we're gonna start having some fun with our colors because now we can use those colors. Now we can use the colors that basically when you think of Vi, you think of the exact color, the local color. You're gonna be using those right now. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So let's start with our good old hair because that's probably gonna be the biggest thing that picks up the light. So we can say, okay, well, Vi's hair is like this pinkish color. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's grab that color. Just got our soft brush and we're gonna start laying it in. And the reason why this is gonna start looking so pleasing to your eyes is because of the contrast. The contrast between the saturated local colors, right? And then the desaturated, right? The desaturated, or actually these are both pretty saturated. Actually, this is technically more saturated. Oh no! Okay, well anyway. Oh, that's the other thing. Is that, yes, your colors will not always get more saturated as they go into light. In fact, most of the time, they will become less saturated. They'll do this thing called blowing out, like blowing out your colors. Where basically they'll move towards white. And as they move towards white, they will desaturate. I've noticed that in a lot of cases, there's like a U curve that happens with a lot of colors. Like as a color gets brighter, like for instance, here, I'll demonstrate this right now. So let's say the brightest part of Vi's hair, we want it to be very desaturated and light like this. Okay, so these are going to be the parts that are the brightest. So probably like right here, right there, just kind of laying stuff in right now. It looks really muddy because we haven't colored our lines yet, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay, so there's part one of our U shape. Now, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be moving into the saturation. Okay, we're going from here. It's like a sideways U. It's going to be like this. Like we're going to be moving like this. Okay, so we're going to move this way to our saturated colors. That's what's up next. Get yourself a little bit of that in there. Even darker. And I always like to hue shift. I'm always thinking about little hue shifts that I can use in my colors. Or rather, portray in my colors. Okay, and then in the shadows, we're going to come right down like this. More purple. Get ourselves a little bit of this action. And then very, very dark. So we've completed the U shape. And that still looks weird, so let's go ahead and saturate it back to what it was. There we go. There we go. All right, so another thing that works really well is coloring our lines. In fact, I'm going to do that right now because this is a very, very important part. So the first thing that I like to do when I color my lines, especially in areas of high, like very, very intense colors here, I'm actually going to paint them very, very bright. Very, very bright. Well, in terms of lines. Right now they're like straight black. But I'm going to go in there and I'm going to paint them kind of like this pink color. Okay? Now, the way that I'm doing this is you can see I have my line art right here. And I'm clicking this magical button that allows me to, basically the way I've set up my line art, as I've told you guys many times how to do that. Now I can paint just the lines. Paint just the lines. And that's going to give us an effect that's freaking awesome. Freaking awesome. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of this in there, a little bit of that in there. Let's go ahead and color the whole hair, like all the hair, a little bit brighter. That looks good. And then what actually comes in really handy is that oftentimes, especially if you're doing like a rim lighting effect, you can actually just paint your lines like this. Watch this. So I actually just go through here and I'll begin painting the lines to be my rim light. Painting the lines to basically effectively create your rim light. Like that. And that gives you a really good start. That gives you a really good start. Okay, if you're wanting to do a more like painted or painterly looking piece. Painterly looking piece. Okay, so let's go ahead and soften that transition a little bit. That's still looking a little funky. Funky fresh. And there you go. And that's the ticket right there. So that's how I basically begin getting rid of my lines, getting rid of some of my lines anyway. I start like that. And it looks kind of strange, it looks kind of hokey, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes at the beginning at least. So, yes. So let's go ahead and continue with that. Continue with this. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay, so let's move on to the metal and the gold. Okay? Move on to the metal and the gold. So let's go ahead and pick a brighter white here. Or actually, let's go this way. Let's go like that for the metal. And let's start on the metal. So we're going to have metal there, highlights there, highlights here, there, everywhere. We're going to have a nice hot highlight right there. There, there, and across those knuckles maybe. Nah, actually I like it more like that. Yeah, that looks good. I have like a cast shadow from the head. Those always look good. Let's move on to the whites. All right, there we go. Getting that cleared up, getting that taken care of. Good. Leather. And again, mostly what I'm thinking about is just like, what is the local color? What is the brightest version of this color? Because that is what is going to be affecting these areas. So there you go. Getting a little bit of that in there. So now you can see, slowly but surely, our light is taking shape. Our light is taking shape on our piece. And we like that. Everybody likes that. Still ticks me off how many frames we're dropping. It just really bothers me. It bothers me. It hurts. It hurts. I seriously don't know what's going on. But I will figure it out. I will figure it out. And when I do, I will find the cause of it and kill it. All right. But that is another conversation for another time. Let's go ahead and continue with this. I'm going to just basically lay in these background, or rather the local colors from what's coming in from the bright light behind. Take a couple questions, do a little bit of ambient light, and then we'll call it good. And we'll call it good. Oh, yeah, and don't forget to lock each of your masks. If you didn't know, each of these colors are on their own separate masks. Separate masks. Save your life. Save your life. So I'm going to go ahead and do this instead. Kind of want my golds to be more like that color. Yeah! There we go. Oh, great. And I totally effed that up. There we go. There we go. Put a little bit of reflected, just a tad bit of light on that. Get some light there, get some light there. Ah, yeah, now you like what you're seeing, huh? Now you like what you're seeing. There we go. Okay, so you can see our character is starting to take shape. Very slowly but surely. You can see our lighting is already starting to come into play here. And I'm liking it a lot. So, again, a way to soften your lines and prepare them for painting is I like to just go in and I like to paint the lines themselves. So let's go in, for example, to the golds here. Go right into the golds. We'll paint these rather than black lines. Let's do them basically using like a very dark brown. Dark brown there, dark brown there, dark brown there. Okay. Let's do the same thing up here. Lighten that stuff up, lighten that up, lighten that up. Very quickly just painting these things in. Just to soften it up. Just to soften it up. Soften that white like that. There we go. Soften this here with a gray. Kind of like that. That looks good. Love it. Good. And sometimes I'll actually just grab the light color and I'll paint it right back into the lines. Because eventually I'm going to be painting over this entire thing anyway. So, yeah, I don't worry too much. My lines are now just guidelines, literally. They're just guidelines. I don't need to worry so much about preserving them, make them look perfect. You know, you just want them to look good enough. They're just guidelines for you. Speaking of that, I'm going to add some of this back into there. Add a little bit of this back into there. There we go. Another thing that I found that works really well is to soften your lines on the face, paint them a very dark red. It's like my #1 thing that I always do. I always go into all the face lines, except for the eyelashes. The eyelashes I like to leave nice and dark. But mostly everything else on the face, I will paint a red tone. It softens it really well. Gets it ready for some fun times. Let's make sure those eyebrows... I'll probably keep the eyebrows. The eyebrows and the eyelashes I keep dark, though. Because it looks good. Alright, so we're one step closer. And with that, I'm going to actually open up question catapults, and then we're going to focus in on the face. We're going to focus in on the face because we do have some ambient lights that we need to consider. So, before we move on with the rest of the tutorial, let's open up the question catapults. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, please cast your questions over the castle walls. Launch your catapults at the lag itself. Launch it at the lag itself. Kill it. And then post your questions over in the chat to the right. And I'll answer your questions. Alright, so let's go ahead and focus in on the face. Because I know that's why you guys all showed up. You wanted to see me paint this face. And I want to paint it too. So I hope you guys have gotten a little bit of, I hope you guys have gotten some good value out of it watching it live, even though it's been really laggy. Again, I do apologize for that. It's always never a good experience. Never a fun experience, but regardless, it'll just be up on YouTube later, and it'll be everything will be fine. Everything will be okay after that. So I'm going to go ahead and paint these eyes. I'm doing a new mask for the eyes. And again, notice how, I'm not painting white, but down, right? What is our ambient color? Right there. Desaturate, add some blue. Boo-yah. Booyah. That's how you pick your colors from now on. From now on. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. And let's go ahead and get our eyes in there. She has like purple eyes, right? Pretty sure she does. If not, now she does. Oh yeah, and the eyes as well as the teeth there. And another really fun thing that I like to do is I like to add a blush. To add blush to the skin. So basically the way I do that is just add a little bit more red, or a little more saturation and a little bit more darkness to it. And then you get something like this. Oh, whoops. I'll just do this on the skin layer, on the actual skin layer. So there you go. A little bit of blush on the cheeks looks good, on the ear looks good, on the lips is a must, and on the nose. And there you go. That's how you make a cute girl. That's how you make yourself a little cutie pie. Yeah, I always like to think of it as like a band that goes right across from each cheek, over the nose, and then to the other cheek. Always looks good. Add some subtlety to your face. Add some nice subtlety to your face. All right, so let's go ahead and take a couple questions. I'm going to save that out. Zoom in on that face so you guys can look at it. Questions coming in. Leritos is asking, do you think it's a good idea to find a design agent if I'm into freelance illustration work? If there is, where can I find these people? I don't know much about... That's actually a great question, but I don't know if I'm the one to answer it because I've never actually worked with an agent myself. And trying to find freelance work, I found was a little bit of a nightmare. So, definitely don't do it the way that I did it. I just kind of got lucky. I'll tell you, I got a lot more interest once I started working for Riot, but that was just because of the exposure that I had with my art. So, I would try it out. I'd try anything once. But, yeah, Yeah, I would do that. But the best thing I've found to do is just keep building your craft, make a name for yourself on DeviantArt, right? Post on the forums, get people to know who you are. Get people to know who you are in the communities that you're interested in. So if it's League of Legends, then do League of Legends fan art. If it's, what's the big game right now? Destiny. If it's Destiny, then you post it on our Destiny. So there you go. All right, Dingo Sniper asking regarding shading, how exactly do you do metal? One thing I've noticed is that your metal shades have some really nice cell look to it. I'm not sure exactly how to do it. Okay, so here's how I like to shade my metal. With every piece of metal, I always like to think about a band that's going through it. And basically, here's how it goes. Here's what I'm thinking of. So, what the heck? There we go. All right. And everything's breaking today. All right, so here's what I like to think of. When I'm shading metal, let me illustrate it like through here, I guess. Or where's a really good... I guess this leg would be the best place to illustrate it. Okay, so with metal, whenever you have because our second light is going to be just basically like a front fill light, okay? It's going to be a fill light, and it's going to be very kind of, it's going to be like a desaturated blue. So I always like to think about a band that goes through the entire body, right? A band that goes through the entire body. So it's like, okay, so the light band, and the reason why this happens is, have you ever taken a look at a ribbon, or you have a ribbon and the way that it bends? When you bend the ribbon, the way that it interacts with the light, there's always a band that goes through it. Similar to almost like an anime hair effect, where there's always that halo that goes through the hair. There's a reason for that, and that's because of the way that it interacts with the light. So again, I like to think about a band that goes through the entire body. So if I were to go through here and shade this stuff, I would do it like this. So I'll have a very kind of a simple highlight. We'll pick our good old soft brush, and we'll go ahead and do this. Okay, so we got a highlight going right through there. And then it's going to come right, again, we're continuing it right up through here. You can kind of make it a little skinnier if you like. Again, you're in control. What I found is the skinnier that it is, the more shiny it looks, the more shiny the metal looks. Okay, and then same thing with the gold. Let's go ahead and take the gold. Let's do our gold highlight like this color. Yeah, that looks good. Oh, the other thing that really makes it look good is if you continue that line. See how I continue it right into the gold? So there you go, like that. Band going right up through here. And boom, there you go. That's how you create shiny stuff. Think about the band that runs through the entire body. And it's subtle. It's subtle, but it gives you a good start. It gives you a good start on what you're looking for. All right, so I hope that helps you out a little bit with your metals. Moving on to a couple more questions, and then we'll shade in the face and call it good. Grimbark is asking, what kind of balance between studies versus practicing and finished works do you think is best? I often find myself unable to decide how to spend my time. I personally always am a fan of just finishing stuff. I always like to take stuff to the end, right? I didn't do a lot of studies. I didn't do a lot of sketchbooks. I do have sketchbooks, but in terms of comparing myself to other people, other students, I noticed these people have tons and tons of sketches. And I don't necessarily think that one way is better than the other, but I will say this. What you got to find out, what you got to figure out is what works best for you. And I know that's kind of a vague answer, but really it is important. If you want to do a ton of studies, then do a ton of studies. Just make sure that you're not using that as an excuse or a kind of a cop-out to say, well, I just want to study a lot right now. That's why I don't want to do a finished picture, when in reality, you're actually not comfortable with doing a finished picture, or you don't think you actually could. So recognize your weaknesses forming, make sure you kind of root those out early. Okay, but I don't think there's really necessarily any balance. I personally like to try to finish my stuff, but I've seen a lot of people do different things. So do what works for you. All right, last question. Sorry I can't get to everybody's. Last question is coming in from Magnolia Chan. Magnolia Chan. What are some ideas/tips for making character profiles like these more interesting, especially when people are reviewing your portfolio? I paint characters, and the character ends up nice, but that's about it. Oh, the image looks otherwise empty. Yeah. Well, the way that I found to do this is what's really interesting is that the use of negative space. Look at how much negative space is actually in this painting. There's more negative stuff going on than the actual character. And the way that I've chosen to make this look interesting is by basically my values. And a really cool way that you can figure out values in composition is this. Make a new layer over top of everything, right? Over top of everything in your piece. Then go ahead and just fill that layer with black. Okay? Then if you set that to color, right? Choose your little layer properties down here. If you set this to color down here, you'll notice, whoa, it changes everything to black and white. This is also another really handy technique to check what is called your values. And a lot of people are they don't know exactly what values means. Basically, that just means the clarity of your piece. The clarity of the values is basically how clear your piece is, like the darks and lights, basically. The darks and lights of your piece. Is it still a clear picture? Can you tell what's going on in this piece? Because oftentimes I find that probably one of the biggest mistakes, or not mistakes, but just like learning curves that a lot of early artists have is that they don't understand the concept of values, the concept of light and dark, and how it applies to color. So try this out for yourself. Make a new layer, set it to black, and then set it to color, and then it's just a handy little layer you can turn on and off to take a look at your values. And the reason why I bring this up is because another cool thing is, let me go ahead and turn this off. Another cool thing that I like to use is the navigator, because this automatically shrinks down your picture into a thumbnail. And I use this a lot because basically an interesting picture, as you're saying, Magnolia, is something that you can see from far away. You can still see what it is. And it has some interesting shapes. It has interesting shapes because if you look at this, right? If you look just up here in this area, there's a cool shape happening here, right? There's like a triangle of light. There's a white triangle and then there's a cutout happening within it. And that automatically makes it a lot more interesting than, say, we take away this background and now it's all white and then there's just like a silhouette. You see how that makes a huge difference going from this to this? So I would strongly recommend playing around with just different ideas of composition, specifically with values. And that could be a whole nother tutorial in itself, and we're getting a little crazy. So that's going to wrap it up for questions. Thank you guys so much for questions. We're going to go ahead and just do a little bit of ambient stuff on this face, get it all taken care of, because I do want to show you guys this, because there is another light source in this piece. I guess technically a couple of light sources, because we got this bright, or rather this warm light source down at the bottom. So I don't even know if that would have reached the face though, would it? It's probably not. I'm more just concerned about the ambient colors here. So I'm just going to focus on the skin. And then we're going to end today's show. And I'm going to go find out what's causing this lag, and I'm going to go kill it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to darken the shadows in here, because we have the hair, of course, overlapping the face. And that is going to create very, very heavy shadows. I'm going to saturate it a little bit more. And there you go. Okay, so there's step one. Oh, another cool thing, the reason why I like the soft brushes is because it's so versatile. Here's an example. I like to use my soft brush, make it really big, and I'll do something kind of like this, right? I'll just do like a soft gradient. But then I'll say something like, actually I'd like it to be more of like a hard cast shadow. So what's really cool is the reason why it's so versatile is because just by shrinking the size of your soft brush, you can now cut back into this. You can cut back into your painting and basically create hard cast shadows like that. See what I'm talking about? So you can have hard lines and you can do soft lines all with one brush just by adjusting the size. And I like to adjust it on the fly by using the left and right angle brackets, right? They're basically right above your enter key. I don't know if you guys knew this, but see how I can change my brush without having to go here? Really, really handy. I always have my two fingers on those left and right angle brackets. And that makes us happy. Oh, so happy. All right. So anyway, so let's go ahead and I kind of want to do like a halfway thing, because this light is probably kind of diffused since it is just ambient. So we won't make those shadows too crazy. Whoops. I won't make those shadows too crazy. Another thing that I want to do is I want to make this hair darker too. I want to make this hair much darker and a little bit more saturated. So there you go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so another cool thing. Remember how I talked about the band that goes through the metal? Same thing is going to happen with the hair. Check it out. Check this out. So we have a band. I like to think of it as like a halo that goes through here, right? So it's going to look like this, okay? See that little halo that I put going through there? That represents the shininess of the hair interacting with the ambient light, but I chose the wrong color because I'm freaking awesome. It should be, because it's blue. I tried to cheat it. I'm sorry. Because it's blue, it should be going more purple. So the actual band that's going to be going through the hair is more like this. Yes, that is the right color. That's the right color we were looking for. And there you go. Also, we'll have a little band going through right there. Just because of the way that the hair parts. You want to think about it this way. Basically, any bend in something that's coming towards you, that's facing at you, is going to have a little bit of that bend going through it, or the band. Anywhere there's a bend, there's a band. There you go. That's a good way to remember it. And I'm going to go ahead and darken this stuff because this is looking still kind of strange. Strangey. Darken this down a little bit. And there you go. Oh, no, not like that. Here on the KNKL show, we never make mistakes. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with the face, though. Continuing with the face. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this soft brush here. I'm going to lighten this up a little bit, put a little bit more life into the skin. We're going to do this. We're going to have a shadow here. Shadows there. And basically the way that I'm thinking about this is that any part of, and I've explained this before when I've taught you guys how to paint faces, any part of the skin that is facing directly at the camera is basically like the plane. The planes of the face is facing towards you. So if you want to think about it this way, like this area is facing directly at us. Like if we were to shoot a laser straight at our forehead, that would be a straight line, right? It would be a straight line. Whereas if we shot a laser at the chin, at this part of the chin, see how it kind of like the ellipse would turn this way? So it's not facing directly at us. I should probably represent that with a perfect circle. So like places that are facing directly at us are here, this area here, right under the chin, as well as the cheek. Okay, so those I know are going to be our brightest points. So let's go ahead and get back to, let's take away that nasty stuff. And let's finish shading in this face. With our newly found knowledge. Okay, so we're going to have a light part there. We're going to have a light part here. Light part right there. Let's go ahead and darken this stuff down a little bit. Darken that down. Darken this down. And let's put in our slightly brighter parts. Highlights, if you will. So we're going to have a nice highlight on the forehead, a nice specular on the nose, as well as a little bit of that going on. That. I'm going to put in a little bit of a highlight right there. And when in doubt, I always like to just simplify. Make sure it's nice and simple. Because if your face is looking, somebody might like shade it like this and be like, oh, well, it looks kind of weird. Like there's too much of a transition going on from here to here. Well, my solution is always just soften it. Soften those transitions. And you will have something amazing. Amazing. Soften it up. And you'll get something like that. Alrighty, and I think that's probably gonna do it for now. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Probably gonna have to do some more stuff with it as we go forward, but that's gonna be another conversation for next week. Or maybe I'll continue it later this week, I don't know. Because I really did want to finish this Vi. Oh, another place that would be catching light. Right there. Right there. So there you go. See? So now you got something that's a little bit better. A little more readable. A little more realistic. Okay? So that's what I'm thinking when I go through and I start shading my faces. Think of where the light's shining back at you, right? And then, yeah, just soften places. If stuff looks too heavy, or if it looks like too sharp at transitions, just soften those transitions. Soften them up. And I'm going to make sure we got a nice hot highlight on that lip there. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to end today's show. Thank you guys so much, as usual, for joining me, even though it was a lag stream today. Thank you for joining me on Twitch, as usual. This will be uploaded to YouTube later, so thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Lastly, before we go, I would like to say thank you very much to my awesome sponsors of the show, David Chiariello and Mitchell Tummers. Thank you guys so much. You're awesome. Just got a third sponsor. She is going to get her very own animated icon. If you are interested in joining the team or getting cool stuff, then you can head on over to the Patreon. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can click that link in the bottom right. This PSD, along with all my other PSDs, will be uploaded there. You can support the show, get cool stuff, and yeah, all that awesome stuff. So yeah, until Thursday, you guys take care. I will see you then. Yeah, we'll be having a good Thoughtful Thursday this week. I'll get the lag figured out. Everything will be good. So yeah, you guys take care, and I'll see you next time.